Good evening. 250 firefighters are being overpowered by a giant bushfire raging north of Adelaide. Fierce winds have created hellish conditions with many townships under threat. Brenton Raglas joins us now live from Malala. Brenton, conditions there are catastrophic.
Oh, Kate, it's a crazy situation here, a dynamic, devastating and continually changing situation that's unfolding here just east of Malala. We're outside the Footy Club Oval and it's just started to rain behind that southerly change that's moved through this afternoon. Here are the details we know so far. Sadly, at least 10 people have been injured, both firefighters and residents, some of those taken to hospital with smoke inhalation and burns. We also know that the CFS are unable at this stage to control the fire. They're trying to guide it where they can, but the front itself is burning on around about a 40-kilometre stretch, continues to burn freely out of control. It's just been moving too quick in today's catastrophic conditions. Many homes and sheds have been impacted. It's still too soon to know how significant and how many have actually been impacted by the fire. Power has been cut to at least 20,000 homes across the mid-north and the Barossa Valley area. Significant road closures brought about through the police and also the fire cutting off roads in this afternoon's emergency situation. And backing up those 250 firefighters, aerial resources both locally and also from interstate. Now, Elise Baker begins our coverage. Here's what's unfolded so far.
Catastrophic fire conditions which caused a catastrophe. Winds whipping up a giant fire front that swept through bushland and crops less than 100 kilometres north of Adelaide. Townships like Wasleys, Pinery and even Malala under siege. The fierce fire claiming properties in its path. A mansion and other homes going up in flames. There was simply nothing that could be done to save them. This man among those to lose everything.
I tried for 2 hours.
Others were more fortunate. On this property at Woolsheds, the house was saved, but a nearby hay shed was destroyed.
The CFS, I believe, came and sprayed all the outside to save the house.
Cars, sheds and industrial buildings also claimed, as well as this giant silo complex. Damage to the power network also causing blackouts to thousands of homes. The fire had started around midday and, just as authorities had warned could be the case, the strong winds made it impossible to control. The enormity of the task clear from firefighters' reports from the front line.
The wind's moving around a bit out here and it's starting to look as though this fire could impact on Malala Township. I would suggest that at least the campers at the Oval need to be evacuated over. Yeah, we're at 2402 Red Banks Road. The fire is engulfing itself towards us at this location. There's numerous hay bales out the back of a shed over.
All they could do was try to save what properties they could, an effort supported by desperate property owners. Other locals had been forced to flee or were evacuated, left to watch at a distance and in disbelief.
I filled all the gutters in the house. I've got all the car packed ready to go. If the wind hadn't changed direction, I would have been gone once I'd done that.
South Australia reeling at yet another devastating bushfire, and summer hasn't even begun. Elise Baker, 9 News.
Now, Elise Baker joins us live here in Malala. Now, Elise, we know that paramedics and emergency volunteers are here joining the ranks of the firefighters. You've been up to speed with a lot of the casualties here today. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right, Brenton. We understand that 2 people have been seriously injured in this blaze. We understand one or both of those are firefighters and they've been airlifted to Adelaide. We also understand another 8 or 9 people have been injured and they're being treated at local and Adelaide hospitals.
And of course, it's, as we said earlier, an unfolding situation. It's likely that there'll be more. We just at this stage don't know. It's still very much a fight on the fire front itself, stretching around 40 kilometres. Joining the ranks of the firefighters, aerial resources. You mentioned being airlifted here. I know for a fact that a lot of the aerial resources were unable to fly because of the conditions here, between 60 to 90 kilometres an hour ahead of that change and as the change pushed through. So again, an unfolding situation. At least we'll leave you for now and we'll touch base a little bit later on with a further update on those injuries. Now, we arrived at a roadblock here at Malala this afternoon just as residents were fleeing their homes. A devastating story as we spoke to one particular couple who had lost everything. Rory McLaren has more.
A face of an unforgiving afternoon.
We'll never be able to rebuild, never. It's taken years. Sorry, it's taken years.
Left blackened from the fire, Phil Westbury caught the moment his home went up after 2 hours of desperately fighting to keep it standing.
I tried desperately to put it out, but I couldn't get it out. I couldn't get the fire out.
He dashed north from Adelaide as soon as he heard the blaze had broken out just after lunchtime. But the damage was already done. His sheds and 8 prized racehorses lost in the flames, his attention turning to trying to save his home of 13 years.
Oh, I tried for 2 hours. I was hoping someone would arrive, but no one arrived. And then it just went. Once it went and the gas cylinders went, that was it. She's gone.
The emotion of losing everything, all too much to handle. As the devastation becomes more evident, support is being arranged for residents like Phil as they try to come to terms with this heartbreaking event.
I don't know how we're going to ever get back on track again. I've got no idea. We both work and we race horses, and now everything's gone. Whole lot, everything. There's not a thing standing.
Rory McLaren, 9 News.
And sadly, these are just the earlier reports of residents affected by this fire. We'll still yet to learn a lot more about how it's all unfolded. We join Jared Breivy now, who's in Owen, who's also been following the story. Good evening to you, Jared. What can you tell us?
Good evening, Brenton. Owen has been transformed into a virtual evacuation centre for the entire region, but even Owen tonight is quite isolated. There's no phone signal here and roads are closed right around the area. Owen is just a few k's away from Pinery, where this fire started. There's extensive damage there. And we also understand that entire town has been evacuated. But this area is no way out of the danger zone. Although the fire went through earlier today, our cameraman filmed this flare up. It was a monster fire front which emerged from farmland just a few moments ago. It was about to cross Owen Road. On one side of Owen Road was a farmhouse, the other side the monster fire front. Crews from right around the region were sent there immediately. We understand at this stage they have managed to save that farmhouse, but it was a very tough fight for everyone involved there. Dramatic scenes there just a few moments ago. It's also noteworthy to say that this area, the farmland in this area, has been completely destroyed. Paddocks of wheat have been literally turned into dust. Much of this area has been blacked out throughout the day just because of the dust which has blown through the area. And we've also come across, unfortunately, so many ruins in the area. We've come across farmhouses, sheds, which have been completely destroyed by this fire. Very sad scenes in this region tonight, Brenton, and we'll have more throughout the evening.
Yeah, thanks for that update, Jared. I have to echo what you're saying there as our crew were making their way to Mallala here today. The dust, the red dust amongst the smoke, it was something that I've never seen before. The CFS held a press conference at CFS headquarters a short time ago, filling us in with the latest information they know. Let's hear what they had to say.
We've got a fire now, particularly dangerous fire, a very fast-moving fire that's impacting on a number of communities in the mid-north and down through the Barossa. That fire has travelled something like 50 kilometres in the space of about 4 hours.
We were warning for wind gusts in excess of 90 kilometres per hour. This would have created very unusual, uncontrollable flare-ups in the fire as it was burning in the northwesterly winds. So it was very ugly conditions for the firefighters.
This thing is going to go for some time. This is a particularly nasty fire, as John's pointed out. It's had some pretty atrocious winds pushing it through the day. So if there's an expectation this thing's going to be all wrapped up by 7:30 tonight, forget it. It's going to be a long haul.
Now, Kate, you'd think that this cool change will help, and it will help the firefighters to some degree, but the rain can actually cause us even more concern for the firefighters, because what it does, the vegetation's burnt right through down through the roots, leaving just the topsoil, and in wet conditions like this creates muddy conditions for the firefighters trying to navigate their way through four-wheel drive conditions. So it really is quite a very dynamic, devastating and difficult circumstance for our firefighters that continue to battle this fire, which is still well out of control. Back to you.
A very long night ahead. Thank you very much, Brenton. Returning now to the unfolding bushfire crisis north of Adelaide, Brenton Raglas is live at Mallala. Brenton, what's the latest there?
Hello again, Kate. The rain has stopped since we last talked, and just speaking to CFS just a short time ago, we understand the area that's burnt so far, to put it into perspective, more than 42,000 hectares, and the fire continues to burn on a perimeter of around 95 kilometres. It is significant. More than 300 personnel are here, made up of CFS, MFS, SES, police, council workers and so on, together with significant aerial support, some brought in from interstate. And speaking of interstate, they expect this fire to go at least for the next 5 days, and using resources from interstate to make sure the fire is fully extinguished. So a lot to come. We also know that the warning is current for the fire burning in a northeasterly direction towards Marrabul, Udunda and Dutton, with significant smoke impacting areas of the Riverland. Now, The fire today started soon after midday just near Pinery. It's just north of Malala and spread very, very quickly in gusty northwesterly winds stretching up to around 90 kilometres an hour before that gusty southwesterly change pushed it across towards the Barossa Valley, creating very catastrophic and dire conditions for firefighters on the ground. They tried in vain to control the blaze, but it just simply moved too fast, trying to control the fire on the flanks, but the front itself stretching around 40 kilometres. Really, the efforts were about firefighters rescuing the locals that were evacuating from their homes. We understand the losses are significant. A mansion among the several homes to be destroyed, as well as farm buildings, not to mention a huge amount of livestock and pets that have been destroyed. We spoke with one local as he fled the scene earlier today. Now, also today, we know that several people have been injured. Many of those have been airlifted to hospital, including firefighters, some suffering from smoke inhalation and burns. Now, this evening, the Premier is actually calling for a meeting of the heads of emergency services to discuss where they go from a state perspective next. Eddie Godfrey filed this report a short time ago.
Meetings like this are only called in the most dangerous of situations, and that is certainly what emergency services are dealing with this evening. All of the relevant bosses from the emergency services are meeting with South Australia Police and multiple government ministers here at the Police Communications Centre on Carrington Street. They're discussing how the response to this bushfire is being managed and how it will continue to be responded to over the next couple of days, and that involves calling on reinforcements from interstate. We spoke with Premier Jay Weatherill, who arrived here a short time ago, who expressed his concerns about this bushfire.
Obviously, this is deeply concerning and we do fear the worst. We don't know the full extent of the damage or injuries or even worse. Obviously when that's known, we'll be providing information to the South Australian community, but this is a very dangerous fire and people should take it incredibly seriously.
Now, this meeting is expected to last anywhere up to an hour. The Premier says the last time this occurred was during the Samson Flat bushfire at the start of the year. We will know more once the meeting is completed, and there are plans to meet again tomorrow morning to discuss how to continue responding to this bushfire emergency.
Eddie Godfrey there, and as we know, CFS actually call this a campaign fire. It means it's going to be an extended effort requiring resources from all around the state and across the country. So it's very important that we all understand we need to get around the residents affected by this, some of them still unaware that their homes have been affected. But we'll bring you a special bulletin straight after the block tonight. Back to you, Kate.
Thank you, Brenton.